You want to help your clients change their behavior, and yet you get frustrated because they keep on slipping back into old habits, the old ways of doing things, even though they've said to you that they really want to make a change. Now, what you can't figure out is that they know what to do. You've explained all of the theory, you've given them the knowledge, they understand the guidance, but something is still undermining it and pulling them back off track. So we need to figure out what is actually going on for them. And often the answer is not in more knowledge, it's actually in understanding what their underlying emotional patterns are that are undermining their thoughtful, desired behavior change. So part of the problem is that our emotions tend to be quicker than our logic. So our feelings are faster in our system than our logical brain, our thinking, our cognition. So what tends to happen is that we become driven by the feeling, and any of that good thinking that we've done about making a plan and deciding what we want to do and all of that kind of reframing work we might have done just immediately gets wiped out because our emotional response is so much faster. And this is why we see that people do things that they have said they're not going to do, because, say, for example, you're trying to cut down on the amount of sugar you consume, but in the moment when something is stressing you out, you reach for the sugar. It's nothing to do with what you've planned and what you've chosen for yourself. This is not about logic. This is about emotional reactivity. So something is going on behind the scenes of that is nothing to do with what you've actually logically considered and what you've desired, but it's actually about a feeling. So if we don't go into the feeling space and touch on what is actually happening here, what is the feeling and what is it serving to act in that way in that moment, we aren't going to ever change that behavior. It's really important that we remember to have empathy with our client, because these kind of patterns of emotional behavior have been formed in our childhood, and they've usually been there for a really, really good reason. They have helped us to survive some kind of situation. So we've laid these things down as almost autopilot patterns of behavior because they've been helpful to us in the past. But that's the problem. It's in the past and we don't need them anymore. We're adults, we're in a different phase of our lives, but we haven't brought ourselves up to date to work in this new way. And this is why we find ourselves, when we're in this kind of emotional reactivity, just doing the thing without consciously thinking about it or cognitively choosing it. This is why we see people self-sabotaging. So on the one hand, they're really clear about what it is that they want and the behavior change that they have every intention logically of making, because they know it's time to make the change. But what really happens is that some kind of emotional response takes over. So the client who wants to stop snacking just suddenly feels themselves in some kind of area of stress or tension in their life, and they go and they behave the way that they've always behaved, regardless of how well they have prepared and planned their thinking. It's not about logic at this point. It is all about that pattern of behavior that's just taken off and got a little bit of a life of its own, and that is a much faster process than our logic. So what we've got to do if we want to help the client is to really help them to slow that process down, pause, and reflect on what's really going on for them. There is a huge amount of value in just naming what the actual feeling is. That in itself can lower our cortisol levels and stop us just reacting. So getting your client into the practice of naming what's the feeling, what's the emotion that's coming up for me, rather than just doing the thing, it helps them to actually get more consciousness about what it is, and then they can make alternative choices. And this is where our emotional regulation tools really kick in. So we need to help the person then process that feeling once they've identified and labelled it accurately, what is going on for them, and then calming their nervous system down so that they're able to make a different choice. We don't make good choices when we are heightened in those emotional states. So we need to try and calm ourselves back down again, feel grounded, take a few deep breaths, maybe do some of the things that we know help us to feel more grounded. I, for one, just put my hand on my heart because that helps me to just return back into my body. And that's my preferred way to deal with things. So I like to have a somatic connection. So I like to sort of find that central in my body and go, okay, what is going on here? How can I calm myself back down again? How can I regulate my system? And so it's figuring out for the client what is going to work well for them, because we're all different and different things will appeal to different people. So for you, it might be breath work. For me, it's more about sort of actually having some somatic, some weight on my chest or some contact with myself. But for other people, it might be getting out in some fresh air. Try and encourage people to do small experiments and try new things out rather than go for big experiences all in one go, because it's easy to overwhelm ourselves and let all of those feelings run riot, where actually what we want to do is try and take smaller baby steps and help them to see progress by getting better at regulating their system and being able to control their own behaviours in that way. But we will always undermine our own efforts to have a behaviour change if we haven't got any understanding of our emotional patterns and how they've served us. So we just need to really appreciate and be grateful for them. They've helped us to survive in the way that we have done and grow into adults. And now it's an opportunity to handle it differently. And that's something to celebrate. Make sure that you are working with your client to really support them through every single thing. And even if they keep on falling off and doing it again, and we feel like we're in this relapse cycle, that is okay. It is still something that they're learning from, and help them extract the insights about what is working and what is going well. And they will get there.